Hi folks, this is Tony for A Minute to Midnight, just bringing you a short video on why I think what's happening in the stock market and the global economy may actually be very significant and be a long-planned event by the elite. Stick with me, it won't be a long video, but I think what I'm going to show you is some pretty important information. I'm no stock market expert or financial analyst, and I don't pretend to be, but everyone should be now aware that Wall Street is closed second day in a row down big. The Dow has closed down 2.1% or 545 points lower, and that is on top of yesterday where it had an 831 point slide. And Donald Trump has been blaming the Federal Reserve and Chairman Jay Powell. The Fed has gone crazy, he told reporters on Wednesday, and he thinks the Fed is making a big mistake. They're so tight, Trump said, that he really disagrees with the Fed raising interest rates. Stock market crashes are planned and manipulated and are not random events. The Federal Reserve is just a scapegoat, and I'm not going to go into all the reasons why, and I believe they're ultimately even expendable in the plans the elite have for a new world order. And of course this started on the 10th of October. And I'm sure a number of our listeners will be aware of an article that was written by G. John Wenkman and published on the Silver Doctors, and which he said, is it just coincidence or are the globalists planning the reset on October the 10th? And he has a compelling argument that the reset is less than 20 days away. So obviously the reset didn't happen on the 10th of October, but there was the stock market plummet. And could it be a precursor for the main event? I'm not going to read all the article. It's worth reading it at silverdoctors.com. I'm going to go down, though, because he lays out further down in the article some things that are very, very interesting. I'm going to start off by going to the last paragraph. It says, the last date that I gave in my prior article, because he has actually written an article earlier where he mentioned that there were 3 dates, and August 15th being another one of the possible reset dates. The last date that I gave in my prior article for the reset to occur on was November 11th, which happens to be the 100th anniversary of the end of World War I. As I mentioned, the Great War ended exactly on November 11th at 11 a.m. 1918, because to the Freemasons, 11 plus 11 plus 11 equals 33, which is their top degree. 33rd in their secret society organisation. This year is especially important to them because this centennial event happens on 11/11/2018, which in their numerology is 11 plus 11 plus 11 equals 33. The president had planned on a huge military parade and ceremony for this event in Freemasonic Washington, D.C., as stated in my previous article, but has since cancelled it. He claimed now that he will go to Paris instead for their huge planned event to commemorate this centennial affair. Paris is the Freemasonic heart of Europe ever since their planned French Revolution of 1789. So watch for November 11th and any important clues before this date for the coming Great Reset. Oh yes, I think I had also mentioned that it just so happens that there are 33 days between October 10th and November 11th. Coincidence? Okay, so we've seen the beginning of some stock market turbulence on the October 10th date, and now there are 33 days from that to the 11th of November. And I believe this may well be significant, and I'm not predicting that something's going to happen on the 11th of November, and we all know about the boy who cried wolf because we've seen too many of these type of predictions. But I am saying that it is significant, and in the occult circles that go above actually Freemasonry, 33 is a very big number, and they do everything with Gematria and Numerology in mind, and I can prove that to you in many ways. And very briefly, here are just 2 examples of how they put it in plain sight. The first one is the home of Freemasonry, the United Grand Lodge of England, it says we contribute £33 million a year as one of the UK's largest charitable givers. So that's one example. A second example is Wellington's not-so-secretive Freemasons are selling their 3.3 hectare Brooklyn site. And notice 3.3, that's 33. Okay, now I'm going to go back to the Silver Doctor's article. In the previous paragraph, he said, I stated that October 10th is another date for that the Great Reset may occur because on the Economist Magazine cover of January 1988, the gold coin hanging from the Freemasonic Phoenix's neck is stamped 10/10/2018, which would lead us to believe that their chosen date for the new world currency reset would be October 10th, 2018. And then a bit further down he says, 7 is a very important number to the victors, those who rely heavily on numerology, the Kabbalah, and Gematria for their planned events, and if you think otherwise, I encourage you to Google Christine Lagarde's speech of January 15th, 2014 on the occult meaning of their magic number 7. So watch for October 10th and any important clues before this date for the coming Great Reset. Now, I'm going to do some more on Christine Lagarde's speech in a minute because this is significant to me. But before I do that, I would like to say, notice the 10/10/2018, and he's used that to say, 10th of October 2018. However, don't forget that you drop the zeros when you do the Gematria the way these occultists do it. And so 10/10 would actually be 11 or 11, and 2018 also adds up to 11, so you would then have 1111. And of course the 11th of November 2018 adds up to be 33 because you have the 11th month, the 11th day, and 2018. If you add those together, it adds to be 11 when you drop the 0. So you have 11, 11, 11. You total that up, and there you have 33, which I think is very significant, particularly since 33 happens to be the number of days since October the 10th, where you had the beginning of the big stock market day falls. Okay, now I'm going to go back to an article I wrote in November 2016, which you can find on the A Minute to Midnight website, and I wrote and published this the previous day to the election where Donald Trump won in 2016. I was pretty convinced that Trump was going to win the election and had been for a number of months and wasn't afraid to say that. I didn't believe all the so-called he was the underdog and was going to lose to Clinton kind of stuff. So anyway, with that in mind, here is the article. I'm not going to read the whole article, but I'm going to go down to a section about Christine Lagarde's speech. And I'll play Christine Lagarde's speech in a minute. Many people may remember the strange occult speech given by Christine Lagarde to the IMF on January 15, 2014. Plenty of people worked out that she was sending a coded message to her occult friends when she gave the audience a numerology lesson, but no one quite seemed to get that message right. I'm going to outline something here which may or maybe won't turn out to be the message she was delivering through that strange code. What was the message, you may ask? Well, here is what I'm thinking. Stick with me and I'll outline it.
Now I'm going to test you numerology skills by asking you to think about the magic 7. Okay? Most of you will know that 7 is quite a number in all sorts of themes, religions, and I'm sure that you can compress numbers as well. So, if we think about 2014, all right, I'm just giving you 2014, you drop the 0, 14, 2 times 7. Okay, that's just by way of example, and we're going to carry on. So 2014 will be a milestone and hopefully a magic year in many respects. It will mark the 100th anniversary of the First World War back in 1914. It will mark the 70th anniversary, drop the zero, 7, of the Bretton Woods Conference that actually gave birth to the IMF. And it will be the 25th anniversary of the fall of the Berlin Wall. 25th. Okay. It will also mark the 7th anniversary of the financial market jitters that quickly turned into the greatest global economic calamity since the Great Depression. The crisis still lingers.
Now, notice that she said at the beginning of that example of the numbers, it will mark the 100th anniversary of the First World War back in 1914. Now, that's kind of significant when we've just seen that 2018 is the 100th year anniversary of the end of the First World War, and that end 100th anniversary is actually on the 11th of November this year, the 33 date. Now, going on in the article, I will bring out what I said here. So now let's delve briefly into the numerology she used. Please remember that the Illuminists, Freemasons, the Kabbalah and other occult groups do everything of significance based on their numerology beliefs. Firstly, notice she says the 70th anniversary of Bretton Woods. Note that's 70 years, or you drop the zero, it'll be a 7. 25th anniversary of the fall of the Berlin Wall. 2 plus 5 equals 7. There's another 7. 7th anniversary of the global economic calamity. That's another 7. You have 3 sevens, or 777 when you add it up. See, 7 is a number of perfection. In other words, perhaps in the minds of the Kabbalah, it represents a solution. Now let's look at something curious regarding what occurred. Well, I've said what will occur 2 years after that IMF speech. The next president will be inaugurated. If that president is Donald Trump, which of course we know in hindsight it is, take a look here at what Michael Snyder of the Economic Collapse blog wrote. If Trump does win, he would be inaugurated on January the 21st, which would be his first full day in office, but he would actually be inaugurated on the 20th. And he would only be president for part of that day. So Donald Trump would be 70 years, 7 months, 7 days old on his first full day as the Prime Minister of the United States. And this would happen in the year 5777 on the Hebrew calendar. So we have exactly the same numbers there as what Christine Lagarde had used. Or if we go, remember, 70 years for the Bretton Woods, then we had 25 years or 7, and then another 7. And so Donald Trump, 70 years, 7 months and 7 days adds up to 777. Could it be that Christine Lagarde's speech to the IMF in 2014 was a signal to the Illuminist insiders to prepare for a Trump presidency, and with it an economic collapse and a total reset of all currencies, leading to the eventual replacement of the current financial system with a new global monetary system? Remember, I wrote this before the election. I hope I'm wrong here, because if I'm right, it would mean that Donald Trump was chosen for this job at least 2 years previously, and it would show that rather than him being an outsider and not part of the club, it would mean that he has been deliberately played a Hegelian dialectic role, and that the whole elite support for Hillary Clinton has been nothing but a clever ruse and a distraction. If the real Illuminist goal has been to get people to think that Donald Trump is a good guy, outsider who's going to lose the election through rigging to the evil Hillary, what will people think if in fact Trump wins, which of course he did? What if their goal has always been to get Trump into the White House? And then I'd written another previous article explaining some more reasons why. And anyway, I went on to say, this is the one time in my life I hope I'm proven to be wrong, but if instead I am right, then things are not as they have seemed. If Hillary wins the presidency, then this article would be meaningless. I put that in there, but I always knew in my heart Trump was going to win. However, if Donald Trump wins, then I'll be watching the global economy very, very closely. The false prophecies of Dominionist followers like Lance Wallnau and Mark Taylor, who have painted the 777 being God's seal of approval on Donald Trump's presidency, I think is completely blown away by the fact that we've just seen that numerology of the occult insiders and elite uses that very same system of numbering. I've always felt that it was the Hegelian dialectic being played and that Donald Trump was always the choice of the elite to be there as president when the economy gets collapsed and a new system is brought in. And I actually believe that new system is probably AC chain, which has been developed as the digital SDR in conjunction with the IMF. So I think that is actually what's going to come at some point and replace the system that we've got now. I suspect that anyway. And I'm not necessarily saying that this reset is going to happen on the 11th of November, but I think being that it's a 33 date, it's probably very likely that something significant will happen on that date. And with it being a Sunday, it is even possible that that will be some sort of reset date and that there'll be a bank holiday on the Monday, which again, I've always thought that when they do it, it'll be a Sunday night and the bank holidays are likely to be on the Monday. As much as I did back in 2016, I believe still that 777 is more likely to be the seal of the elite's approval on Donald Trump rather than God's approval or special anointing of Donald Trump as America's great president that so many Christians have painted him to be. And not that I'm saying Hillary would have been a good choice, because she would have been a disaster as well. But looking at what's going on at the current situation with the stock market crashing at the moment, I do think it's very likely that Trump was placed in the job to be there when whatever the collapse and replacement system comes into play, whatever that looks like, Trump was put there to be the man in charge when it happens. On the 9th of October, Brandon Smith at altmarket.com wrote an article, "The world is quietly decoupling from the US and no one is paying attention." He brings out some excellent points in it, including the delusion has also recently bled into parts of the alternative economic movement, with some analysts hoping that the Trump administration will somehow reverse several decades of central bank sabotage in only 4 to 8 years. However, this thinking requires a person to completely ignore the prevailing trend. And further down, he says, but the dollar's reign is quickly coming to an end as global banks like the IMF seek to centralize monetary authority under a single world structure. The great illusion being perpetrated is that the multipolar world that is arising is somehow anti-globalist. This is simply not the case. So what is actually happening? The world is getting smaller as everyone except the US is consolidating economically. This includes alternatives to SWIFT. Russia dumps US treasuries but maintains close ties to the IMF and BIS, calling for a world currency system under the IMF's control. China does the same, increasing ties to the IMF through the SDR basket system, while cutting its ties to the dollar one by one. Europe is embracing closer ties with both Russia and China, working to defy US sanctions, and so on he goes. Folks, the point is we don't know exactly when this is going to happen. I'm definitely saying we should be prepared, as it could happen in the next little while. Be prepared, do your prepping, make sure you have all the things necessary to survive a transition. It might be a good time to watch a video that I did with Mike from On Point Preparedness and Fred from ET Prepper just recently, titled Prepping. Is it biblical? What, how and why? And you can find that on our YouTube channel and on our website, and it details some pretty useful information about being prepared for potentially what may lay ahead. Don't want to get people panicking, that's for sure. It's just a good time to think about stuff and to have a heads up as to what might be going to happen sometime, if not now. It will probably be sometime during Trump's presidency, I would think. And That's probably about it. If you can help by donating, A Minute to Midnight is run entirely by donations, and we do appreciate your help, and you can do that on our website, aminutomidnight.com. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow our website. Well folks, that's about all I wanted to share. I hope this has been helpful for you. I don't want to get people panicking, I just would like to get people prepared. So until the next time we catch up with you, have a great week and God bless. And this is Tony signing out on behalf of aminutomidnight.com.